Hey everybody, Tiff here, the voice of Rainbow Warrior and Rainbow Wahine Volleyball. Just want to say thank you so much for tuning in here on this latest edition of Lunch Break. My go-to lunch meal, any kind of sandwich, I would have to say if it's a go-to spot, Zippy's, it's all right. Well, first off, I have to say that I was introduced to the sport at a very young age before I was even born. My mother, Cindy Lewis, a longtime columnist and also beat writer for both the Honolulu Star Bulletin, then the Honolulu Star Advertiser, was taken to a lot of practices, a lot of games, whether it was club gym, then it was the special events arena, now Simplify Arena at the Stan Sharp Center. Went to a whole bunch of practices, a whole bunch of games growing up, loved being around sports, and it continued into playing, growing up. I got into volleyball maybe my 6th grade year over at St. John Vianney, continued into high school at Iolani. And then in college, when I went to Pepperdine University, that's when I first got into broadcasting. Wasn't more so of the writing, as I have that from my mom. I was more into the talking part. And of course, everybody in college wanted to broadcast more of the basketball games, which was fine. And that left me a whole lot of opportunities for both women's and men's volleyball at Pepperdine. So I got to do that for 4 years. And then upon graduating, came back home, started interning at ESPN Honolulu, more so as a promotions assistant. Slowly got into Rainbow Wahine basketball as an analyst with Blaine Cowie. I want to say the 2009-2010 season. Did that for a couple of years with him, and then started working with Dave Kawada. And we just wrapped up year number 10 together and started working with Scott Robbs on the Rainbow Wahine volleyball side as his analyst. When he moved over to TV, I slid over and became the play-by-play voice in 2014 for both the men and then the women. And that's where I've been ever since, and just thankful and blessed to be in the position that I am in. I had to work at it. And yes, I've been around the game for basically my whole life. But for those that know me, first off, I am kind of quiet, which is kind of odd because I am a play-by-play voice and you have to constantly be talking, especially when you are on radio and you have to paint the picture. But as you get more comfortable with basically having the game in front of you and broadcasting it, growing up, I would watch whatever sport was on, put it on mute, and just kind of describe what I was watching. And it just sort of grew from that, going from TV into radio. And it's just been a passion of mine for all these years, and continue to paint the picture for the best volleyball fan base out there. Growing up, especially when I first started working for ESPN Honolulu, first it was ESPN 1420, then it moved over to ESPN Honolulu, just a name change. Privy to be at basically every single Rainbow Wahine Volleyball and Rainbow Warrior home game. And it would just so happen that where our broadcast was, she was right next to me. And so it's been very cool to say that we are the only mother-son sports family working in the broadcast industry. And so I think that's something pretty cool and very cool. You mentioned how she has been such a good writer, and I would put her work, and I'm being biased here, I would put her work up against anybody's out there in the volleyball community, just from what she's done indoor, the beach, professionally. You name the sport, you name the contacts within the volleyball community and who she knows, and just what she's able to do. And there's times where I'll be on the air and I may miss one or two things, and she's able to kind of in her own little way, have like a sign language, like, oh, this was they're challenging a net, or they're maybe, they're looking at a possible violation in the replay system. So it's kind of cool. And we joke that we see each other a lot more at the arena, our second home, our home away from home, even though we are mother and son. But it's a very interesting dynamic, and one that is very special to me.
Okay, that's great. You ready to get into the questions?
Yes, let's do it. Volleyball road match. Wow. Well, the easy answer, and this one happened a couple of months ago. Was at the Covelli Center at Ohio State. men's volleyball taking down BYU in a 3-0 sweep. That would be the easy answer for the national championship, but I'm actually going to do one that happened a couple of years ago in 2019 during that unbelievable streak of Warrior Ball 19, and it was in Provo at Smith Fieldhouse. It was against BYU, and for a program that had lost, I think, 14 or 15 straight matches in Provo, hadn't won at BYU since 2003, and for that group to come away with a 3-0 sweep, but more importantly for us to have been there live for one of the very rare road match live broadcasts that we had of Rainbow Warrior Volleyball in quite some time, to be there live for it, that might be my most memorable road men's volleyball match. It's going to be different. Something that we knew was going to happen with the additions of UC San Diego and CSU Bakersfield. You knew you were going to get 2 more teams into the conference, which would mean 4 more conference matches. Basically, it would take away almost a non-conference weekend, if you will. And so with 20 conference matches and UH, going to have those 8 non-conference matches, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a couple of different new venues we're going to between San Diego, obviously with UC San Diego, and then up in Bakersfield with CSU Bakersfield. But just the fact that they're, especially that Central Coast road trip, when you used to have gone to Cal Poly and Santa Barbara on back-to-back nights, because of Bakersfield, you're now going to have Cal Poly and Bakersfield. You're going to throw in a Northridge with the Santa Barbara, so it kind of shakes up what has normally been the usual locales for a 2-match road trip. Excited. It's going to be something different. Very, very stoked that they're going to be going to Utah to take on a San Diego team and also a very good Utah team. Also excited to see USC come out here. I know a lot of fans have been wanting to see the women of Troy. New head coach Brad Keller. Pac-12, what more can you say? But of course, that home opener against Fairfield, you throw in an A&M and Marquette. That opening weekend tournament, it may not be a couple of name teams, but as far as the RPI goes and just the strength of schedule, Hawaii should be tested right out of the gate.
Okay. Why aren't they playing UCLA this year?
That is a very good question that I do not know the answer to. That is a very good question. Do I have a preference? No. I love calling volleyball, whether it's men or women. Gender has no preference. It does not bother me at all. It's not going to be specific to one. I love calling volleyball in general. For the men, it's more of a power game. So it's more of a, if the serve even gets in, serve, bump set, spike, more often than not kill. So it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. But as far as the women goes, their games are maybe longer in terms of the number of rallies. And so you're constantly talking for, maybe 25, 30, 40, 45 seconds where you don't have a natural stop. And you're having to describe the action because yes, a lot of people are watching it on a TV or a stream per se, but there are some that, and we love them all, that they are listening on radio. And so their only way to visualize what they're watching is through our radio broadcast. And so, for our ability to paint that picture and to make them see it live, regardless of how quick and powerful it is in, say, the men's game, or in terms of the length of rallies on the women's side, though that might be the biggest difference in terms of what kind of broadcast it goes between a men's game and a women's game. I'm laughing at the question because we love our prognostications and we love our guesses. A team that went 26-4 in 2019, but there's so many questions. I mean, obviously with the loss of associate head coach Angelica Ljungqvist going back home to Sweden, Hanna Helvig also returning to Sweden after COVID had canceled the 2020 season, and the defending Big West Conference champs from 2019. It's going to be they do return some. The big question mark will be at setter because you lost the Bailey Choi, you lost the Noreen Yostia, the 2019 Big West Conference Player of the Year. So you do have a couple of good setters one's a freshman in Kate Lang, also the transfer in Mylana Bird. How quickly can they adapt to setting the offense to running an offense and getting in system with their hitters who would have been their first year connection in 2020. But then he also added in this 2021 class. There's so many storylines within this team, within the conference. But, you know, at the end of the day, conference still runs through Hawaii. I know Cal Poly will have a lot to say, and maybe to an extent, a UC Santa Barbara, maybe a Long Beach. I do like Hawaii's chances, although I'm not going to say that they are going to be the 2021 Big West Conference champs, but I do like what they have that is returning from that 2019 team, the additions from 2020, and also the recruiting class for 21. That is a very good question. When time does permit, I will try to keep an eye on the high school scene, whether it is, like you said, the boys or the girls side. One name to really keep an eye out for out of Kamehameha School is Devin Kahahavai, a tall, very good athlete. One of the top players in the state was I believe the Gatorade State Player of the Year this past season in the shortened COVID season. Hawaii does have her eye on her. Now, whether or not she chooses to stay home or if she elects to go to a Power 5 school in the mainland, that remains to be seen. As of right now, she is still uncommitted. So we'll have to wait and see. But as far as, you know, names out there, that's probably the name you're going to be hearing a lot of if you are watching a lot of high school volleyball this year, is Devin Kahahavai. It was different, especially for, obviously we didn't have a season for the Wahine, so it took some time to get back into the swing of things, especially on the men's side. When they started their season in March, when normally it would have been in January, just a different sight line. Normally we're on, if you've been in the arena, if you've seen it on TV, where we are for the radio broadcast, we're more on the Mackay side. We're across from the bench, and we're more at an angle, maybe more so on the baseline. But for COVID purposes and where we were this year for home events, we were on the Mackay side, and we were on the same side as the visiting team. So it was a little bit different, you know, a different sight line. Did have the same vantage point as far as being like right on the baseline, which is nice because you can see everything, as opposed to maybe being right in front of, say, the up official, the down official, and it can get kind of hard, especially, you know, for, you know, blocking purposes or, you know, possible net violations. And then, you know, then of course, you know, having the plexiglass, which we had at home games. We also had that when we went up to CSUN for Northridge for those two matches with UH and the Matadors. Was it different to call a match with the COVID protocols? For sure. Did it make a big difference that there were no fans? Yes. Did we see matches where piped in crowd noise became an issue? April 2nd, April 3rd, when Long Beach came to town, we knew all about that. But I think the coolest thing was when Ohio State was hosting the Final Four, and they allowed a certain number of fans, and of course Hawaii fans showed up and showed out. And as soon as they were allowed in to the Covelli Center for that semifinal match against Santa Barbara, and seeing friends and family walk in, but also seeing the players on the team who were going through warm-ups, seeing friends and family walk in, you could just instantly feel that they were just more excited to be on the floor, more excited that they could play in front of people as opposed to the cardboard cutouts, which was a great idea. But just to have that live presence in. But at the end of the day, to answer the question, it was very different to have matches with no fans, but as a broadcaster, you still had to make do with what you had. And we just hope that, you know, for what we did, fans and listeners, you know, still got to enjoy the match, even though they weren't in the arena.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Tiff, thank you very much for joining us today. That was very
no problem, Lance.
No, as you all like to say, it's time to pack up and go home. Is that what you say?
Pack it up. Let's go home.